Some people say they have seen the chupacabra. After some tequila, he was dancing the lambada. We don't know where he has come from, making all the Mexicanos looking like a dum-dum. They say that he's a monkey. I think the whole story's just a little monkey.
There's a monkey-eyed creature that we call the chupacabra, 4 feet tall like a mutant chihuahua, in Mexico City, Puerto Rico, Nicaragua. Hey, chupacabra! Hay un criatura que se llama chupacabra, es muy feo como tienes para guava. Queremos pasar algunas palabras. Oh, chupacabra!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and to anyone else who can hear the sound of my voice, to this week's edition of the Squatchable podcast, where we will be talking about Unit 731 and Project Paperclip, or Operation Paperclip. Not really sure. One of those two. Joining me, as always, from the sunny slopes of Tennessee, Nikki.
Hey.
From the coveted plains of the Emerald Isle, Kevin.
Hello, everyone.
And from the deep, deep swamps of the bayou, Cajun Chubbs.
Greetings to everyone.
And if you haven't already, head on over to Chubbs' channel and check out his latest review of the trailer for the movie Exists. It's a good laugh. I enjoyed it. That's on Colonel Chubbs' channel. And if you enjoy Chubbs, Nikki or Kevin, you may enjoy the badly drawn misadventures of two Bigfoot. Head on over to Bigfooting with Keith and Colin, where this week Keith and Colin have to deal with some posh Yetis moving in next door. Going to be a bit of a laugh. Got it all planned out. Yeah, I can tell you're all excited. From your silence, it's
For silence.
No, I was giving you your fair dues. As
We're just letting you talk. How about that?
Yeah.
For once.
Yeah.
all right.
Right.
So, without further ado, I am your host, Richard Judas Allen. Let's get on with it. Nikki, Unit 731, go.
All right. So, when you think about World War II and human experimentation, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Eugenics.
Yeah, and who are the first group of people that come to your mind?
Nazis.
Nazis. Yeah. See, you don't automatically think Japan, right? So basically, Unit 731 was a covert biological and chemical warfare research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army. It undertook lethal human experimentation during World War II.
And
Like
what
tens of
kind of
thousands.
chemicals were they researching?
Hold on, I'll get there. So, calm down. So they were basically, because we kind of learned atom bombs sort of bad, like we can kill each other without destroying the entire planet. So chemical warfare and biological warfare was a big deal. So the chief medical officer basically was placed in command of the Army Epidemic Prevention Research Laboratory, and it was in Manchuria. And basically what they did was they set this up to kind of go, oh no, we want to make sure that this never happens to us. So we have to see what we can do to keep ourselves safe, right? So they're involved in research, development, and experimental deployment of epidemic-creating biowarfare weapons and assaults. And a lot of the times it was against the Chinese people throughout World War II. We're talking they had plague-infected fleas. They bred them in a laboratory, and they were spread by low-flying planes. And they would just dump them on Chinese cities. It kills tens of thousands of people with bubonic plague. They spread typhoid and paratyphoid into wells, marshes, and houses in Nanking. And they even infused them into like snacks and then sent them out locally. There were at least 12 large-scale trials of biological weapons that they performed, and at least 11 Chinese cities were attacked with biological agents. There was an attack on Changda, I think is how you pronounce it, and it led to about 10,000 biological casualties and 1,700 deaths among the Japanese troops themselves with cholera. But they basically were testing bubonic plague, cholera, smallpox, botulism, anthrax, typhoid, dysentery, that kind of thing. And then they would go in with protective stuff into these cities and just kind of steal people to experiment on them, or try to figure out and examine the dying victims. So some of the stuff that they did weapons testing. So, they would grab some prisoners of war, some Chinese people, whoever they felt like they wanted to experiment on. They would go kidnap them, or they already had them. And they wanted to know what it would be like to be shot in the chest. So they would shoot one of those guys out in the chest, and everything they did was vivisection. So they did all of their surgeries, autopsies, everything, no anesthesia. And when I say autopsies with no anesthesia, they would get these people like with gangrene, or they would give them syphilis. Sometimes they would rape and force pregnancy, and they would literally do an autopsy on the mother and baby while she was still pregnant with no anesthesia whatsoever. So they were not good people. Some of the stuff they did pressure rooms to see how much pressure a human body could take. They did frostbite, so they would stick you in a cold room or outside and douse, say, your arm in water until it froze completely or started to kind of turn black. And sometimes they would shatter it just to see what would happen, or they would stick you in a room, and depending on what test subject you were, they were trying to bring back your limb. So it might just be you hanging out in a warm room until your arm, did whatever it was going to do. They might take it off. They might hit it with something. You don't know. Like sometimes they would stick their arms into boiling water to try to revive, quote unquote, these. But a lot of the times you think about Nazis and gas chambers and stuff, but the Japanese were just as bad. They were planning on launching some of these. They had like entire bombs that they made that just had nothing but biological stuff in it. We know what gangrene and stuff like that does to the body because these guys were the ones that were opening up people before they were even dead and seeing what was going to happen. They would blast people with x-rays to see how many they could have before they died or got cancer. But yeah, they were just as heinous as the Nazis, and they're just way less known.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right there, Nikki. I think a lot of people don't realize is that, with Japanese soldiers, because of the Bushido Code, especially prisoners of war sometimes were not treated very, very well. I mean, of course, we all know that,
Right.
anybody that's been in, that whose parents served in the, or parents or grandparents or whatever relatives served in the Pacific. It wasn't, if you surrendered, that you're supposed to be under the Geneva Convention, and that's just not how they looked at a surrendered person.
Right.
And also because of the fact that in China, for example, there was such a big issue with the Chinese people versus Japanese people, and that sort of that outright racism towards Chinese people, that they were subjected to all kinds of different things. It is interesting that we don't know about it, which is funny because long before there was a World War II, there was China had Japan had invaded China, I think in 1931, and so these things were kind of going on for a long time, and for whatever reason, we don't seem to know that happened, even though I would say they'd had much longer history of trying to develop that stuff. I mean, a lot of people don't know, for example, that methamphetamine was actually invented by the Japanese. That chemical compound methamphetamine is a Japanese compound. They came up with it. They sold that in Germany under the brand name Pervitin. And so, before the war, and you've got to realize that the Japanese and Germany were sharing these different types of things back and forth. So by the time World War II hooks around, mothers in Germany are who are have a baby are taking methamphetamine to stay awake during the night so that they because the baby's keeping them up, and so the loss of sleep and so all kinds of different ramifications come from this, from the chemical adventures of these two countries.
Chemical adventures. I like the way
I
that you.
mean, but I mean that's what I mean, it's like, why don't we know any of that?
Right.
Why don't we know that Japanese people invented meth? You know, and why don't we know that half the German army were taking it? It's like, this is the thing, right? We have built up sort of Japanese and German soldiers to be so brutal and so relentless that they can just take over all these different places, which they did at the start of the war. But you've got to realize, for example, yeah, they were high on meth the whole time. If you take 100,000 people and give them meth and a bunch of guns, you're gonna have a bad time, and so that's one of those things where but the fact of the matter is for the Japanese, I think, and it has a lot of consequences for people on the West Coast and our area, because they were going to try to put, and I think they did put, a lot of different chemical agents or bombs or these different types of things on high altitude balloons and put them across the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and they were supposed to drop on cities around here. So they were figuring that like if they would have gotten one of these chemical agents that could give everybody the plague to Seattle or Portland or San Francisco especially,
Mm-hmm.
and as you know, I don't know if you know this, America doesn't deal with pandemics very well,
No.
or logically at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, in a lot of cases that at what point in time does it get out of hand before you realize it's gone too far, and it's too late? And so I don't know. That was just my take. I'm sorry. I took up a lot of your time. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I was hoping for conversation.
Yeah. But and so that was one of those things where I I will say this. I had a relative that was a Japanese prisoner of war, and he had nothing good to say. So let's just put it that way. He had nothing good to say about Japanese fighting forces. And so that's maybe why I sounded a little bit sort of like that sort of edge of that has worn off on me.
Right.
Most prisoners of war have great things to say about their captors.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that they do, but I mean, there was. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying some of the things that happened were way out of the bounds of like what
Human decency.
most people would define as being humanly decent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask what Chubbs' take on it was. I was gonna go further into what happened, but Richards kind of plays a part into what happens next. So I decided to let him have it.
Mine. This is Kevin's.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh, is it? Heck yeah!
I was going to talk about so we could just do it all at once. I mean, if you want to just handle it that way.
It doesn't matter to me.
Well,
I just
because again, I think that from that standpoint of it, and a lot of people don't, so from a standpoint of the Japanese chemical war, and then also the idea of the Nazi sort of high tech nuclear area,
Mhm.
of course we when we supposedly beat all these folks, um, a lot of the people who were the worst ended up coming here to America and
Mhm.
doing all kinds of different things here. And so, I mean, that's the kind of thing that is always odd to me, like
Well,
if you were the commandant of a Nazi concentration camp where they're doing these experiments on Jews and Slavs and people like that, where they're doing exactly the same thing, high pressure tests, um, you know, giving people stimulants and then making them walk until they literally die with a 70-pound backpack and stuff like that, which they all did. So if you were the guy who was in charge of the camp, you were in trouble. But if you were the scientist who came up with the idea, yeah, you get a free pass to America and a job at NASA. You know what I mean?
and
You
that is basically Project Paperclip.
Right. And so, I mean, and that was the thing it was strange about it. And then I know that with, like, for example, Werner von Braun, because he had to develop the V2 rocket, which is the first rocket that actually had entered into out of the Earth's atmosphere. Because he had done that, um, he and he had killed a lot of people in London, and the English people got in a fight with America because they were like, okay, we want Werner von Braun brought up on war crimes. I mean, because he literally killed all these people, over 10,000 people in London, with these things, and places like Coventry and all those different places were being bombed by Germans, and all the industrial heartland of England and everything. And
Yeah, but did you guys
Interesting
not,
point.
at one
Oh,
point, did you guys not kind of do that to your own cities for experimentation's sake?
what do you mean?
Didn't
Well,
you guys drop some kind of something? You sprayed it in the air, and it caused a lot of people to get really sick.
I
I'm
don't
trying
know.
to remember which. Hold on.
Yeah, you
Um,
look that up. Yeah, there's
yeah.
yeah, I'd be interested to know about it. I don't know about it, and but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
interesting point. I was actually born in Coventry, so
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing that's the thing that's an interesting part of it. How would you imagine being some person um watching America? I mean, this is a thing that happened in my family, because my half of the family is British and the other half's American. And so, you're watching Neil Armstrong standing on the moon, and and half of the person, is hearing Werner von Braun talk about, Uncle Werner, and half of the family wants the guy locked up because he's a war criminal, and half the guy thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, because we beat the Russians to the moon.
Oh, here
And
we go. I found the thing.
yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
So between 1940 and 1979, the Ministry of Defense secretly dispersed potentially dangerous vehicles and chemicals and microorganisms across much of the country to evaluate readiness against a biological attack from the Soviet Union. They dropped zinc, cadmium sulfide from airplanes and dispersed it by land to track the spread of fluorescent particles, and also spread E. coli, um, Bacillus globigi, and Serratia marsincans bacteria.
Hmm.
So yeah, you guys did that to yourselves as well. I mean, it's kind of like what we did to old people with their oatmeal in the United States, Quaker Oats. Thank you.
Gene raises a good point in the chat. We think these people deserve to be up on war crimes, and I'm pretty sure the mayor of Hiroshima wanted some people brought up on war crimes as well.
Yeah, no, I understand. And but then you have to you have to realize that if you didn't, I mean, you can make a big argument, really, folks, that it wasn't the fact that we dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan
Two.
that actually,
Two.
yeah,
Two nuclear
well,
bombs.
2, yeah, no, 2, because we only had 2. I mean, if we had to,
We only had 2,
no,
guys.
seriously,
We would have nuked them with way more. Yeah.
No, that's the part that we don't want to admit. We only really had.
We would have kept nuking them if we could have.
Forever.
Until Godzilla came out of the sea.
Well, once you decide to do it, it's pretty
You
hard.
might as well go for, you might as well just
mean,
go for
and so, but I mean, we had the material for 2. I mean, and there's a lot of evidence that maybe we got those material from a German U-boat that was actually en route to Japan. So that nuclear material that was going in there might have been German nuclear material, uranium, but we don't know. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of people who make these arguments, I'm not one of them, but a lot of people who are military historians say they would have rather. By that time, the Russians were heading so far through China that they wanted Japan, and if the Japanese had not surrendered to America, they would have ended up being under the Soviet Union, and so that was a fate worse than death for them. So that's why they surrendered. Some people have made that argument, and so.
And a couple of nukes. Interesting point. Remember the time America accidentally dropped nuclear weapons on its own civilians?
Oops.
Well, that didn't go off, did it?
No, they didn't go off, but they still dropped them.
I think it's not. It's probably down in the swamps by Colonel Chubbs.
No, it's in North Carolina.
Or was it? I thought it was like the Everglades or some kind of swamp or something like that.
No, it's in North Carolina.
Yeah.
They accidentally dropped the nuke. I bet they were like, when they received the news, they didn't go off.
Right. So from that standpoint, I'm not making the moral argument, really, from the standpoint that all people in the Second World War didn't have something bad. But I'm just saying is that, it not to realize, say, for example, you watch programs about ancient aliens and stuff, and they'll just say, well, how come we have this huge advance in technology over this short period of time?
Human experimentation.
Right. Exactly. That it's not aliens. You know what I mean? It's the fact that we were willing to, go ahead and take live subjects, give them a whole bunch of stuff, and and that's why we know a lot about decompression and all these different factors in medical, how medicine type things, is because we openly experimented on our own fellow humans less than 70 years ago.
Which is cool, unless you're the people being experimented on.
Right. Exactly. But then,
and it's not okay, guys.
No, it's not. But that's the point of the argument that you can make, right? Because it's not like the Tuskegee experiment in America. We're giving black folks syphilis. You know what I mean? And then not treating them.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
And so,
well, I don't remember that, but I've read about that.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing that so am I surprised that they were dumping all kinds of stuff on me me and Richard when we were kids? No.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah.
Look how good you guys turned out.
Exactly. Wait a second, Kevin, hold that thought. Dean Cooper, Churchill is rapidly becoming our Columbus, being that everyone was stoked on him when I was a kid, but these days not so much. Sorry, Kevin, continue.
No, I think Dean has a point there. But although what's interesting about Churchill is Australians and New Zealanders and Irish folks never would have thought that, because Churchill was the first Sea Lord in the First World War. A lot of people don't realize that. And, he was one of the guys that was behind the Gallipoli campaign, which was a disaster, like literally you couldn't make it any worse than what that went on. But by the time that Churchill,
I don't know. He could have invaded Russia in the middle of winter. That would have been a dumb move.
I don't know if it would have been.
You'd have to be a moron to do that, right? I mean, that was a really stupid decision.
Right, but we're not French, so you have to give that. Churchill wasn't French, at least, but I'm joking.
No, it's fine. He wasn't a garlic munching surrender monkey. I'll own it. All right.
Right. Well, and so, by the time Churchill comes around, obviously he was the right, you have to say he was the right man at the right time for the war. But once the war was over, they dispatched of Churchill pretty quickly after that. I mean, Churchill was gone by 1950, I think, or even before that. And although
1946, I think, pretty much after World War II officially ended, we were like, okay, we've had a laugh, but let's get rid of it.
I mean, so that was the thing, and you can make all these arguments about British colonialism, and sort of letting people in Bombay and New Delhi and places like that starve to death so that the money, so the food sources went somewhere else. And that's probably all true,
We did the same thing to the Irish during the potato famine, all right? And you know what? It works.
Yeah, look.
Hate us all you want, but it works.
Yeah. Well, you see, this is the thing that happens. So, I mean, from that standpoint, like I said, at a certain point, look at me. I'm strong as an ox. I'm full of aluminum salts and
prions, mad cow disease.
Yeah. And look at me. I'm doing great. I'm only 50 and I'm falling apart. But anyway,
we're okay. So getting back on subject.
I can't believe you.
Must we?
Me of all people, getting back on subject. So, Paperclip, why did the military and the government say that they were hiring these guys?
Well, I mean, part of the problem is that even at the end of the war, because of the fact that the Soviet Union was our sort of uneasy ally, right? And we were so afraid, and we knew, and I think even Churchill said at the time that by the time if we take out Nazi Germany, and I think also who was that other guy? Patton said, yeah, we should just team up with them and just like wipe out the Russians, because of the fact that I think a lot of people knew that that communism was going to be a world force and everything like that to deal with, and so it was a fight over technology. So we were willing to overlook a lot of different things to get a leg up on the Soviet Union.
Yep, we wanted information against the Russians. It
was a golden age, technology being developed.
Right.
Everybody, pulling together for the greater good. Jodie Foster ruined everything.
Jodie Foster.
Right. Well, I'm pretty sure Jodie Foster, her true name is Jodie Foster Ski or whatever.
Yes.
Racist as hell, both of y'all.
I didn't say anything.
You're laughing.
I talked to my. So are you. I stuck to my guns. I brought up the very legitimate fact that Jodie Foster brought about the downfall of Western civilization, and Kevin took it to a racist place. I mean, I'm over here spouting the truth. Kevin's the one being racist.
Yeah. Yeah,
I guess calling French people garlic munching surrender monkeys was kind of racist. Actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
what's xenophobic. It's xenophobic. It's not
It's
racist.
not xenophobic to think that all French people are a bunch of surrender monkeys that stand in front of cafes going, oh, 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 oh. With their berets and their striped shirts
And their
garlics.
and their Goa cigarettes.
God, I hate them. I hate them more than hipsters.
Well,
We used the wrong country. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. All
the
right.
French were the original hipsters, brother.
The original hipster.
They are. I mean, that's it, right? They all sit around drinking cappuccinos and smoking. And the more,
All
the
right.
longer you can get the ash on your cigarette, the more of a French person you are.
Listen, it sounds like you guys are just really jealous of sitting around smoking cigarettes and doing nothing else all day.
Oh yeah, because I would hate being married and also having multiple partners.
It would be awful.
And having.
Darn it.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go there because Mrs. Beagle's listening, and I'm not going to say that I want to have multiple mistresses because I don't.
No, you've said it now, Nikki.
Yeah.
I understand.
Make sure you tell us. Sisters got to stick together.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
Also, would she be surprised at all?
Well,
Girl, do you know what your man was saying on the show this week? It's
right.
really uncool.
Yeah, well, I don't think my wife minds because she knows that old dogs chase cars too, and she also knows that they never catch them, and if they ever did, they wouldn't know what to do with it if they. So it's all talk. She knows that.
Old dogs chase cars too. I like that.
Yeah.
You sound like you guys have been married for a hot minute because that's generally just like the
Well, she knows me. She knows me. Like I said. Mrs. Beagle.
Moving away from Kevin's marriage, back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Chubbs, you've been very quiet, mate. Do you have anything to say?
Well, I think it actually is important to bring up, like, even if it's really heinous acts. So, like they say, history doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah.
And as far as Paperclip, like, where does the line, like, should we, like, in history books put, these people did these great things and also were the cause of these bad things, and let people know, like, are we that far from the events to say, okay, we praised them at the time, like, you said getting to the moon and all that. Maybe it's time, like, we give both sides of history when we present it. And one final thing on the first story with the Japanese, I want to remind everybody that at least 2 Japanese submarines did make it off the coast of the United States during the war. So it wouldn't have been hard for them to give anything to us.
Oh yeah,
so
exactly.
One was California, I think the other was in the Gulf. So
right. Well, I mean, the Germans were torpedoing shipping on the way to Louisiana and places like that. A lot of people don't really even think about that. But you raise a good point, Chubbs, in the fact that really, is this why we're afraid to take a COVID vaccination? If you think about it, because of World War II, you realize that Asian countries, and I'm not saying Japan or China or whatever, but Asian countries have developed sort of super strains of things in the past to try to infect America. So is that paranoia not based in some sort of echo in the past?
I would say, though, that there's no way we haven't invented a lot of crazy stuff too.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. No, definitely.
I think theirs just got away from them probably, but
right.
No, that's a good point, but I don't know. The reasons I keep hearing that people don't want to take vaccines seem to be a little, like, out there compared to, like, I've never heard a good reason yet.
Yeah.
Well,
people
it's
like,
quite simple, Chubbs. Bill Gates is controlling all the birds and the 5G, and it's mind control.
right. Like, like I've seen targeted, I've heard y'all heard of targeted individuals,
Right.
people who think like every plane's watching them and every drone's watching them or every car, and they go like into their trailer house, and it's like, well, what do you have that people want? And so
Right.
I think paranoia is the problem, like,
Well, yeah, it could be. But then on the other hand, like for example, if you said, okay, this thing seems to have come out of Wuhan, China, which I don't really believe that it did. But anyway, that's me, right? Personally, I think that you would find that it didn't come from there. But if that's the truth and it happened, and they had developed it in a lab and had brought it to the world, and therefore had infected the population with it. And for example, you have the Tuskegee uh, uh, experiment, and then you have sort of again what Nikki's talking about, experimentation on biological things. Now to come back to this situation, are some hesitancy, and I'm not saying all hesitancy is good, but is not some hesitancy a good thing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's put it this way. When I get the opportunity to take the shot, I'm going to take the shot. Don't get it backwards. But I can sort of understand why some groups of people, specifically Black Americans, would have a big problem with trusting the government.
Yeah, considering what we've done to them in general in the
Right.
past, just for funsies.
Right. So, I mean,
You got like MK Ultra and shit.
right, but I mean, so that's the thing that it comes down to. So I'm not saying I'm saying that of course you have to have some faith in it. I mean, anybody that's been in the army and has gotten the machine, the big jet in the arm from the big sort of vacuum sealer, they hose onto your arm and then shoot you full of a bunch of stuff, and you have no say in what you're getting. I mean, understands that that's the way that goes. But I mean, most people have never had that scenario where they're getting 27 shots at the same time through a vacuum thing in their arm. But
no, we do give our babies shots for a long time in their early years.
yeah,
I've done it with 3 kids to where, all right, every other month they get 2 shots. So then, but we trust that it's doing what it's doing,
But
so.
but like Chubbs, aren't you like worried that you're like making them autistic or something?
Well, I can only say that I got them when I was a kid. Now that's not a good example because I am really not smart, but all my kids are very smart and very healthy and seem to be doing well. But that could be just one example. And there's, but I think so many people do it that we would know if that was the problem. But hey, I'm not a scientist.
yeah, but you have to look at from the standpoint of what the child mortality rates in the civilized world, 150 years ago versus now. I mean, you know what I mean? You're not pumping out 13 kids to end up with 4. You know what I mean? You're not burying 9 of your children by the time that you're 10, and so there is sort of
I think of it as like one hand, like, is vaccines like the reason smallpox is gone because we get that vaccine, but I've heard people tell me smallpox is popping up again. So right. Did we beat it? Is it better? Did it make itself immune? Like, so it could be an endless battle in the end, but
a lot of the times the smallpox is popping up amongst people who are in countries that don't normally get vaccinated for smallpox in the first place.
See, there you go. So in that case, that vaccine seems to work. I don't know what is the dip tech for? that you can give like kids?
Diphtheria.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a.
Or like tuberculosis, like if you go back to the Wild West, that killed almost every other person.
So many people, and you can
Right.
still get TB. I mean,
Right.
but
I think
it's
that's another one we get a vaccine for.
yeah.
But these days, like that's not unheard of. You see it in the movies, like like Doc Holliday coughed up blood, and you see that, and we hear about it. So those cases, I say it works. So I think they got a handle on it, but something new like this, like the COVID thing, I would hope that they do know what they're doing. And,
Yeah.
But I heard they're only giving it to like senior citizens right now, correct?
Senior citizens, first responders are getting it. If you're a nurse or
Right.
you work at a hospital, like I should go get mine. I don't have any issues with taking it really. I had a really bad reaction to the flu shot, so I'm waiting until I go to the doctor and getting them to okay it. But
Depends on the state and the county
Mhm.
you're in.
Your age
Right.
has a lot to
Yeah.
do with it.
And so, yeah, but supposedly, if you believe it, everybody should have the availability in America to have a dose set aside for you by the end of May. It doesn't mean that you get it by the end of May. It just means that you should be able to get it by the summertime. So,
Hey, I can say though, when this thing started, I would have thought it would have took less than a year and change to come up with a vaccine, but it took them a while. I know they have to test and like it takes a while to come up with something like that. But you think a lot of people are, we're so sophisticated, but no, it still takes time to figure things out. So.
Yeah, they have to test it. I talked to someone who was outraged that they were paying some people to do the test. Well, they're paying people to take this. Well, yeah, that's literally what they do. If you're part of a study, they pay you.
If it's
They
a test, it could go wrong. So
Yeah, they're like, we don't know. The only reason I have an issue with the current vaccine is we just don't know what's going to happen with it in 10 years or 20 years. But that's
Right.
why we need to take it. We need to find out if it's good. And I think it's fine. Most of the people that I work with have gotten theirs already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand why people wouldn't want to, but if you do, but I don't think everybody needs to take it for us to get herd immunity. But we do have to have the vast majority of people take it.
Yeah.
I mean, which is fine, because if you don't do it that way, well, and here's the thing that's a scary part, right? Now that we live in countries when we don't move to we live in countries that we don't really go anywhere else, right?
Mhm.
I mean, at this point in time, I'm not in Ireland. I'm in America. I can't really go back to Ireland right now. And when I can, and I'm there, should I just stay there from that standpoint? Because once you start moving through different countries, are you going to be then subject to other strains of these things? I mean, you've got to realize that there's countries out there that haven't had shot one of this, and so you might be able to break it down from the American standpoint for now, but then I go to Botswana and pick up some rare super Botswana COVID thing and come back and kill everybody in America. You know what I mean? You just don't
That
know.
can happen at any time, though.
Right.
And that's
right.
the thing. Literally any time you can do that.
I'm not picking on people from Botswana.
Have y'all seen the pictures of like at airports, people in line standing 6 feet apart, but on the plane they're literally sitting next to each other again?
Right.
It's like, I don't think we got this like really down yet, but okay. I think that's funny though. Like, we're trying.
I work in a surgery center, and I can tell you that healthcare people are not social distancing. We will have reps bring food, and I can tell you that there will be 20 people in a little room with no mask on.
Oh, when I left my surgery, they didn't have a mask for me. And I got yelled at the whole way out the hospital. And I'm like, it's not my fault, man.
They should have had a mask for you. As soon as you checked
I
in, they
know.
should have been like, here, take it. That's weird.
I came in with one, but they lost the one I came in with, quote unquote. But it was funny when I'm leaving, everybody's like, distancing, man. I'm like, hey, it ain't me. Like, I was getting yelled at. So,
Yeah, your healthcare workers do not social distance with each other. We spend like 11, 12-hour days with each other.
Yeah.
So if
I'm
one of us gets it, we all get it.
I'm amazed how many nurses that I know from the cardiac ward who may or may not be casual smokers as well.
Yep.
You know,
Working pulmonary, smoke a cigarette. It's, you know.
Yeah, it was from the stress of it. I mean,
it is very stressful. A lot of healthcare people, most nurses I know go home and drink wine. Like, you know, it's a slow, sad descent into alcoholism. Taking care of other people is what it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that if you
like doctors on coke, just expect that that's a thing. Like, I'm not saying all doctors snort, and I'm not saying that they like cocaine. They just like the smell of it,
which is absolutely understandable. Coke is like the best drug in the world. I mean, I totally support their decision to do that.
You do, yeah.
Well, it worked for Hitler.
I mean, it works for a lot of people. It's very much a doctor and lawyer drug. They pull some long hours. That's
like,
how
I've only ever done it twice, and that was enough. I was like, okay, I can't ever use this again, otherwise I will become painfully addicted.
Right. Well, it's the same. It's the same thing whenever you end up with when I was injured, I got a morphine type drip, and for a long time, you know, there's the way I mean, I'll put it to you this way. So somebody put the tourniquet around my arm so they could put the needle in, and then kind of covered it up. And they didn't realize for like 3 hours that they kept giving me morphine, and I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. You know, I feel like I'm going to die. And, this is all this thing. And then they realized that they left the rubber band around my arm. And so they let it out at the same time.
Oh, no.
So I got, so basically I just got, like 4 shots of morphine to the dome at the same time. And I can see why people are hooked on heroin. I'll just say that.
I don't like that
Every
feel,
single skaghead I know just throws up and goes to sleep. I cannot see the attraction of heroin whatsoever.
Well, it's like it's a warm euphoria sort of way.
See, I don't feel that. I don't like it. I've been on a lot of Dilaudid in my life and stuff like that. I just don't like it. Don't like it.
Well, Coke is drinking 1,000 energy drinks at once. You feel alive. You feel super energetic. I totally understand why anybody gets into that.
You know what else you can do that causes that like unstoppable feeling?
What?
Runner's high.
Yeah, but that's effort.
Yeah, it is effort. I understand. You know how I feel about effort.
I have never, ever gotten adrenaline. I've never gotten a dopamine fix from that. Never.
I have gotten a runner's high to the point where I was convinced that I was unstoppable. It was the best thing ever. I was like, why don't I do this every day? It takes effort. That's why I don't do it every day.
Because I'd have to run every day.
Because then I'd have to you know how I am in the mornings. Could you imagine me? Yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah. I don't know.
No one would want to be around me. It would be mass hysteria.
Those people that are like left, and you're like, get out of my way, you dick. Like, road rage, only from running point of view. Brilliant. Okay,
I already get that. I already get that from just going grocery shopping. Am I the only one that I get cart rage?
I can't deal with it. Like, the only time I've been arrested is because I headbutted someone in a supermarket because of that, utter crap of having to deal with other people in an aisle in a supermarket.
Going really slow.
Or
Was
that
it-
one dude who's standing there and you go to move past them and they deliberately move out in front of you. And they say they're not doing it on purpose, but you can totally tell they're doing it on purpose because they're passive aggressive assholes that have no right to steal your oxygen.
Okay, so let me ask you that. What did that happen in an American supermarket or a British supermarket?
British.
Oh, okay, because if Nikki has a trouble in an American supermarket, I think we ought to run her down to the local Tesco.
Like America, like I've been in Walmart and stuff. So
Right.
I know it's so much better over there. They just wouldn't be able to cope in a British supermarket.
No, yeah. First of all, you got to get out of your car. Your car, you mean literally, your car's too small to begin with. Then you get into a slot that's too small for your car, and your car's tiny. Then
Yeah.
you got to go over to the cart place, put a pound in it to get your.
They do that in Canada too. You do
Yeah.
realize that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have to pay for your bags. I was like, what?
No, but you're paying a pound to push a cart around, so people don't steal them, and then then you have to go into the thing. The shop's tiny, in comparison to an American thing, and then you get up to the counter, and because of the British laws on standing up, so in America they stand up, so basically it looks like it's going faster. I don't know if it actually is. But if you go to a British supermarket, everybody's sitting down, right? So the checker's sitting down, and it just seems so slow for moving it to the belt across the scanner, And it's like, then you're like that, and then then they don't bag it up. You've got to bag it up, and then you.
See, that doesn't bother me. It's the slow old ladies who have their cart and eat. Like when I go to the grocery, I don't want to be there. So get your crap, like get what you need from the aisle and then leave.
Right.
It's not that hard. And that's kind of, that's what causes me cart rage. I don't care. Like,
all right. Well,
if it takes forever to get out, like Nikki, I don't care. Just get out of my way.
When I go home, you and your husband are invited to come to Grey Abbey in Northern Ireland, and you can stay with me and my wife. And the only place in town that you can go is the little Vivo, which is like a 7-Eleven. That's in the town itself. It's just a little tiny village. And then you can stand behind, because literally everybody's going in there to get their messages, and then talk to the checker for 20 minutes. Everybody's got to talk to. I mean, you could be the third person in line, and you actually have to leave because you couldn't get your stuff within 25 minutes.
I can tell you, self-checkout, like Walmart's replacing half of self-checkout is saving lives. That saves lives. I can tell you that.
We went so far off topic.
I was just thinking that we started talking about Japanese war crimes in World War II, and now we're talking about Walmart self.
Is Walmart? I mean, okay, is that not in and of itself kind of,
Japanese
human?
War crimes?
Isn't that some kind of human torture? People being slow in the supermarket? I think so.
If you think about it, these innovations that we have, like self-checkout and designs and computers and things like that, that's true because of the fact that World War II. In a way, we have technology like computers and self-checkout and things like that because of these machines that they were building to blow each other up.
Like how radar is pretty much how cell phones came about, and radar came from the British inventing radar in World War II.
Right, because from that standpoint, I mean, I remember, shops where you couldn't even pick out your own stuff. It was all behind the counter. You know what I mean? And you had you told the shop attendant what you wanted, and they grabbed it off the shelf for you, and they put it down, and they rung your messages up, and that was it. That was the first time you touched the stuff. I
don't know if y'all do this, but my wife does Walmart. They bring it out to you sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can order it ahead of time, so you don't even have to go in the store anymore. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, in a lot of ways, that might actually be the way of the future because it'll cut down on theft. You know, because the
Well,
amount of theft that comes out of a store, if you can just go online and you're paying for everything that you're taking out of the store, that actually might make it cheaper for everybody else.
I can
You won't.
say I remember like when I was in high school commenting like how great would it be if like McDonald's delivered, and look now,
Yeah,
anything can get brought to you. So,
yeah.
It was a shame from day one that McDonald's didn't deliver. I mean, that just seemed to
true.
me like a natural progression. I'm
It took
surprised
them a
it
long time.
took this long to get to that point where they're like, okay, we'll deliver via Uber.
Yeah, I mean, because I think especially Americans, we're lazy as crap. Like we want what we want. We don't want to put any effort into it. Just bring it to us.
I just I
If you're
hope.
going to McDonald's, you don't really. I mean, you want the least amount of effort.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, Nikki. To be honest with you, as somebody who's a half breed, I'm a half blood, right? A mudblood American. I'm just going to say I don't think Americans are lazy at all. Americans seem to work way more than anybody else.
Okay, I would agree with that.
In,
But I
in,
mean,
in
we like
Europe, for example, I mean, like it's just never gonna. It would never work out that way. I mean, I think Americans just have to have things brought to them because they're underpaid
I
and
could see that.
overworked and exhausted.
Touche. You were
Well, hey,
correct.
to wrap it back to the topic real quick, I will say Japan has this beat like they go to school all year. They don't take summer breaks.
And well, but it's actually been proven to be better to do it
Yeah.
that way because when you give a kid like a couple months of breaks, they don't remember what they learned last year. It's already gone.
Oh
And the
yeah,
way that they do it, they do get vacation, but it's like every few weeks they get a vacation,
right.
and it's a small one, but they actually retain their information a lot better.
Oh yeah, no, I can tell you as far as being a teacher in America, the first, I would say, month, 2 months maybe, it's just reteaching them everything that they forgot over the summertime.
Yeah.
And and I know people don't want to really see that, but if a child doesn't do very well in the last quarter of the previous year, they're probably not going to do real well in the first quarter of the next year because, to be honest with you, unless that unless they start paying attention at that point in time, or there's a different teacher that maybe gets through to the product, it's the same stuff that you're dealing with. So if you're sitting there helping your children with their homework in September, and you're like, didn't you learn this last year? Yes, they did learn that last year. They just didn't remember it, unfortunately. So there is something to be said about year-round school. But again, we set up schools in America to be around the harvest times, and or heat. Back in the day when it was just too hot in the summertime to go to school. Or you're gonna sit in the school in Louisiana in the middle of June. I can't imagine that without air conditioning that would be at all favorable to learning.
I can tell you, my dad, his high school, which was the same one I went to, but when he went to high school, no AC. They had to open the windows and have fans, and he said it was horrible. So
Yeah,
we've come a long way. But no,
yeah,
couldn't do it in the summer. No, there's no way.
yeah. So
You walk outside here, you're drenched. So,
yeah, I don't know how you do it. Chubbs, I honestly don't know how you do it. I was watching you on your channel the other day, and you're talking to your friend, and I'm like, if you were sitting there and you had your your short sleeve shirt on and the fan going and everything. I'm like, how hot is that? I bet it's hot.
well, that was hot because when we film at his house, we have the production lights with the umbrellas pointed at us.
Oh,
So it's a little bit hotter when we do that one. But no, and it was a warm night.
yeah. Well, I'm just an Irish kid from like a little bit south of the Arctic Circle, so Anything's
Man,
too tough.
no, don't come here, man. We literally had 2 months at max winter this year. I'm wearing shorts right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's unreal.
Yeah. Crazy.
Or do go there, eat good food, get messed up. It'd be
Well,
awesome.
no, I think it's definitely gonna have to happen. But it is interesting to say, what would it be like if we actually could travel and Richard came to America? If Richard's allowed back into America, I don't know. Are you, Richard? Could you come here on a visa?
I'd have to get a proper visa, but yeah, I can go.
Oh, okay. Well, then we should spend like but again, you couldn't do that, right? Because Richard could get a month off. I could get a month off. Nikki couldn't. And neither could
I
Phil.
don't need a month, but I can come hang out. I mean, especially if we went to,
Well, if we went to
if we met up in Louisiana, 7 hours away, man.
well, so, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
Nothing.
that would be your one trip. Like we couldn't do it all in the same year.
Nah.
Like, go to
Yeah.
'cause once.
Also, poor people. There are poor people.
Yeah,
I'm
but
one of them.
I'm just saying is sometimes you'll figure it out. It's cheaper to fly to Ireland than it is to fly to Florida.
True.
Sometimes, I mean, once you get there, you're kind of
In
screwed. But,
any case, we have utterly failed at our topic tonight. I think we had like 20 minutes on the actual topic, and then we just sort of rambled for an hour.
I'm sorry.
Hey, it's okay. I covered mine.
Well, I think
That's true. Kevin, you let us down.
I think. Well, no, I'm just gonna say this. It's a moral quandary. We have the nice things in life that we have because of somebody seriously suffering 70 years ago. And we have to come to the moral implications of that and to realize that as human beings, we should probably just stop being dicks to each other as much.
That's true. Good point.
And I don't see that remotely happening anytime soon because at this point in time, the whole point of existence seems to be pissing off people who don't think like us.
It's my moral code.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's just like, okay, I mean, are we to the point where we cannot even agree with somebody on moral terms because politically we can't? I mean, and that's the way it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they're not in your tribe, then screw them.
Yeah, but that's how you end up in situations where you find yourself, it's okay. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The moral of the story is the reason that Japanese and Germans got away with this is because they dehumanized other people to the point where they were not human. And we are no better at doing that right now. So if you think that you couldn't end up in a situation in 10 years where we're not doing the exact same thing to a bunch of people and you turned away from it and said, I didn't know anything about it, son, whenever they were growing up, yeah, that stuff happened, but it was a big secret. You're fooling yourself that we couldn't just go right back into it. And that's what makes me sad.
That's why we need to bring it up and highlight it and bring it to people's attention like we're doing today.
Yeah.
And Walmart self-service checkout saving lives.
Well, that's the worst.
That'll wrap us up for this week. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. Chubbs, I assume you still want to talk about the Kentucky Goblin invasion?
If y'all are cool with that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hope for that. And I will be discussing the other Donner Party that happened in exactly the same year and ended pretty much the same way. I forgot the word I was going to use.
Good job.
Damn. That's annoying. The horrible tale of the Terror and the Erebus. It's always good for a laugh, that one.
Yeah.
Do you not know that, Kevin? I was expecting you to say something.
No, I don't. No, I don't know that. I mean, to be honest with you, I was just thinking of the other Donner party. I was going to say the Donner Reed party, but nobody probably is old enough to know who
I
Donner
don't
Reed.
know who Donna Reed is.
Okay.
No, this is the other Donner Party, which happened in the same year and ended pretty much the same way. So
Okay.
we'll be discussing the Terror and the Erebus, and Chubbs will be discussing the Kentucky Goblin invasion. Hopefully, Phil will be joining us next week. That's it for us. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
I
Richard,
say
you
y'all.
need to go
Hopefully,
out to the Donner Kebab party.
Had a kebab tonight.
Oh yeah, there you go. Saturday night.
I'm old enough to remember. Just go